Good morning, fine friends. Anitra here with Simply Living Smart, and I'm so glad that you're with me today. I know it's a little unusual. We're filming on a Friday, but it's going to be a super busy weekend, and so I wanted to make sure that you had enough time to start organizing your pantries and kitchens, and that I was able to tick off all of the things on my to-do list. So welcome. For those of you who are brand new to Simply Living Smart, if you have an inkling to do some home organization this summer, then dive in with me because this is going to be such a fun ride. Now, we are already on week 4 of our home organization challenge, and it kicked off on July 4th. You will see all the past episodes on the live videos at Simply Living Smart on Facebook. So I would encourage you, if you've missed any of those episodes, to catch up because it really starts at the very beginning with a really good foundation of what we call the weekend warrior basket. Week 2, we go into closets, bedrooms, and bathrooms. Week 3, we talked about family rooms, laundry rooms, and home offices. And this week, my absolute favorite is organizing your kitchen and your pantries. I've done home organization for a number of years and love seeing the transformation for my clients, where we take these spaces that are utterly chaotic and don't make any sense at all, and we turn them into something so amazing and so efficient that it just makes them feel like they never want to leave their home. So that's my intention with all of these trainings for you, and I hope that you'll feel the same. I'm going to be showing you a lot of different ideas today. I'm going to be sharing a lot of things that have helped other people. And again, I want you to just sift through. If things make sense to you, then take and apply them. And if they don't, then on you go and blow it off with the wind. So my intention today is just to give you some great ideas, and hopefully you're going to be able to implement some into your home, into your kitchens and your pantries. And always, if you have comments, please leave them in the chat because I'm happy to answer those for you. And if I don't happen to see it while I'm recording today, I'll be sure to answer them after this is over. So there you go. There's the background, and I'm super excited for you to see all of the episodes because there are little bits and pieces of golden nuggets that you'll find, I think, that will help you in every aspect of home organization. All right, so if you remember, in the last couple of weeks, I've been really encouraging you, whenever you organize any sort of space, to approach those spaces with the acronym CALM, C-A-L-M. Again, I'm going to iterate what that is. C is create a plan. Know how you want to feel in that space. Know how you want it to function. That's your plan. A is approach it by sections. So don't get overwhelmed by a huge project. And kitchens and pantries can be a huge project. I know. Sometimes I spend 8 to 10 hours with clients in their pantries and kitchens. But when we really mindfully approach it in sections, it all gets done. It's all beautiful, and it feels great in the end. L is lighten up and let go. I think this is one of my favorite parts about organizing, is understanding that not everything has to stay. We don't have to have 4 or 5 spatulas if 2 will do. And all of the things that we tend to hold on to, if we can sift through and see a little bit of white space in our homes, you'll just feel this feeling of lightness and efficiency. I promise you that. M is manage it simply. This is always going to be the one that I go to finally, is manage it simply, because if we just organize but we don't have an efficient way of keeping it organized, then it's for naught. So we need to be able to know how to manage those things. Today I'm going to show you all kinds of ideas where you're going to be able to say, you know what, this could work for me, or I know someone who could use this information. So I would encourage you to share that with whoever you would like. So my number one goal in the kitchen is to get as much stuff off of your kitchen counters as possible. Having a clean workspace is the key to feeling relaxed and enjoying your kitchen experience. So I have always believed that paperwork should be a no-no in the kitchen. This is exactly why we've established the Weekend Warrior Basket, because there are places for your paperwork and it's not the kitchen counter. Because what happens? People will put mail and all their things on their counter, and then either they'll get dirty or they'll get lost. We know, we've all been there, right? So manage your paperwork in the Weekend Warrior Basket so that your kitchen top and your countertop can be clean and useful. All right, so I'm going to ask you just a few questions as we start off the kitchen organization. Number 1, Do you have a kitchen that's separated from your pantry, or is it all kind of the same? Number two, is your pantry a large walk-in pantry, or are you using maybe a hallway in the closet? Number three, do you have a system where you can store food storage efficiently? Do you have a backup plan? And what does that look like? And how efficiently does that work when you're having a backup plan and then your everyday supply of replenishing? We're going to talk about all of these things. Number four, do you feel frustrated because you just can't find the space to hold all the food plus the appliances you need to be at ease in your kitchen? I want to be sensitive to whatever situation you find yourself in and offer you solutions, again, that may be for you or may not be for you. But I really feel like if you can make, because the kitchen is the hub of the home, if you can make it efficient, you're going to just feel so much more at ease and be so much more productive. Now, let's start with the kitchen and then we'll move on to the pantry. And remember, if you have specific questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. I will say that I'm going to start uploading more organization videos that I've done with clients. I uploaded one yesterday to Facebook, and if you want to review that, it was quite an undertaking. I think it took us 6 hours to do, but it was just a pantry space. I'm going to select some videos that I've taken with clients where they have completely different spaces to kind of give you ideas. If you have small areas, what would you do? If you have large walk-in pantries, what would you do? I'm even going to share some videos that I filmed on long-term organization and some super creative ways to make that happen. So I hope you'll join me. If you want to be notified every time one of those airs, just click the little bell on the notification button and you'll be sure to get those. But I think those will also give you some good ideas because I can't share everything with you today in this episode. So I want to start with 20 simple tips that you can implement in your kitchen that will help you feel more organized. Are you ready? Here we go. Number one, do you remember last week when we were talking about family rooms and I introduced this little magazine caddy, okay? Now again, this doesn't have to be paper. I happen to have paper because I use this for my piano music and for some of my magazines. But these come actually, you can purchase them. They're again, just magazine racks, holders at Target. They come in a mesh, kind of a mesh steel. And what you can do is you can actually screw these to the inside of a cupboard door. You can screw them inside of your pantry wall, behind your pantry door. Imagine the possibilities with these. And if you have several, you can do these things. You can put things like boxed wax paper, foil, plastic wrap. You can store your paper bags. You can store your sandwich bags. You can also roll up dish towels and have them in here. But I know a lot of clients who have collections of these on a back door. That's really inconspicuous, but super easy to grab things. So there's idea number one. And again, I would encourage you until you know what you need to store or what you need to organize, don't go out and purchase any containers. Do that at the very end when it comes to actually sorting everything. All right, number two, office file racks turned on their side are great for stacking pots in your cupboard. So those organizing racks that you can buy for manila folders on your desktop, just turn them over, screw it into your wall, and you can have really easy access to your pans because they sit right there on those little shelves, I call them, and then you can easily grab them. They're not stacked and they're not scratched, and you can just take really good care of that cookware. All right, number three. Now, I love this idea for little kitchens. This is a great idea. Kitchens that are a little bit more, let's say, farm style, to take empty mason jars, large ones, and then fill them with really colorful food like, popcorn kernels or pretty pasta or dried fruit or nuts. And you just put a magnet on the top lid, you put a magnet under the shelf itself, and then you just have it screwed there, and it would be like on this right here would just be hanging down under this cabinet top. And it looks beautiful to have a little collection. I've done that before, and it's absolutely beautiful. So you just unscrew it when you need it, you use your food, and you screw it back on, and it looks kind of like a little apothecary. It's kind of nice. So there's an idea for a small kitchen. All right, let's talk about spices. Now, I am crazy about spice drawers, and I have seen so many crazy, on just super complicated spice racks. And one thing that I want you to know about spices, and you may not be aware of this, but by the time your spices hit the grocery shelf, do you know that they're almost 3 years old? They are so old, you can hardly smell them. They're the ones, yes, I will say, that come in the little plastic McCormick, or, they've been around for a long time, so they're not super fresh in the first place. Here's what I would encourage you to do. Look at a reputable bulk spice store like San Francisco Herb or Penzeys Spice. They're incredible. They ship quickly and you can buy your spices in bulk. They're incredibly fresh, all organic, super, super high potency, and you don't have those mismatched plastic containers in your cupboard that never make sense, right? Those tiny ones or the big ones. So what I would do is I would actually do this. This is what I do for all of my clients for their spices, is I put them in these little glass spice jars. Now, I have a bunch of these. Any of you who want to invest in some of these spice jars, they're very inexpensive. They're glass. And number one thing you want to do with your herbs and spices is to store them in glass. This way the color doesn't leach, the flavor doesn't leach, and you can see everything beautifully. So what I do is I purchase my spices and herbs in bulk, at least a 1 pound supply. I take the bag that they came in and I put the bag in the freezer or in a backup box that I'll show you. And I only have enough, these are 4-ounce supplies. I only have enough for maybe a 3-month supply in my kitchen, but they're all nicely labeled. I like to have these drawers that are one for savory and one for sweet. Well, I probably have 3 of these, to be honest, 3 for savory and 3 for sweet. But it's easy to see when I have to replenish. My herbs and spices are super, super potent, and I can see exactly what's in. So I love the solution. And you may either put it in your drawer like this if it fits better, or you may put them standing up like this if it fits better. So whatever floats your boat. And I'm going to be posting a video on how to organize your spices. So that's coming up next. Now, if you have a backup supply, I would take those bags and I put mine in a container like this. So I have a shoebox for sweet spices, and then I have a shoebox for savory spices. And again, it's just the big bulk bags, which I use to replenish the smaller ones. And I just keep this in my pantry. So it makes it super, super easy to find when I need it. Okay, so that's another great idea. And remember, your spices and herbs are gonna last longer and be more fresh if you put the bulk in the freezer. So it'll capture that freshness and stay really good for you for quite a long time. Number 5, expandable drawers. I love those bamboo expandable drawers. For any of my cupboards or my drawers in my kitchen that they'll fit. So I have them for silverware. I have them for all of my mixing spoons and my spatulas and my whisks. And so it's great, and it takes up every inch of space in your drawer. That's going to be the biggest tip I can give to you, is maximize every inch that you can, whether it's a drawer or a cupboard, so that you can use that wisely and nothing goes to waste. All right, let's talk about mismatched things. How many of you, I'm sure most of you, have mismatched things? Things like this. Whisks that go to, a big mixer or food processor. You probably have these different grater, tools that fit into a mandolin. You might have a blender top. You might have, it's endless. You might have little whisking tools for your electric whisk. Instead of having these kind of floating around everywhere, I just have them in a basket, and all of those little parts that go to bigger things or appliances, I put in the extras basket, and I just slip that right under, right where my appliances go. So it's really easy. I don't have to worry about looking for little parts everywhere by the appliance. I have the main appliance, and then in a basket, all the little parts that go in, and all the little attachments. So that has helped a lot. Okay, that's number 7. Number 8, group of small and similar items together in storage bins. So I want you to think about this. Some of you out there do cake decorating. Some of you do, love to bake with cookies or do candies. Wouldn't it be nice if you had a container, and I have one sort of like this, and there's 4 or 5 of these in my cupboard, but I have one, again, that's about like just a clear shoe size, and I have one that has all of my baking things, like my muffin liners, my birthday candles, my food colorings, my extracts. All of those are all together, so it's so easy to find when I'm going to go do that activity, I have one just for cake decorating. And so again, bundling or sorting items that are like together in a container and then labeling them makes it so much easier to find. That way you can take the whole container out, use what you need, clean it up, put it back, and it's not all these floating little pieces and parts in your drawers. Okay. Of course, as you're going, you're sorting through things that you don't need, right? If you have 5 heart cookie cutters, maybe you don't need 5, maybe 1 will do. So again, go back to the episodes that we went over on sorting and what to store, what to keep, what to donate, what to give, get rid of, and how to organize those things so that you don't have as much as you started with. And I always like to encourage my clients, and the kitchen is a big one. You could probably get rid of 45 things in the kitchen, but I always encourage you at least to get rid of 15 things in each room. You're going to feel so much better and so much lighter. Okay, let's talk about baking sheets. Now, I don't know what your oven or your baking situation is or how many baking sheets you have. I happen to love baking, and so I have my favorite little baking trays. Now, instead of just piling them up, I actually pre-line them all with parchment paper, and then I stack them up so they're ready to go when I'm baking. And so I never have to really wash these. I mean, I can rinse the baking trays off, but I love having a bunch of parchment paper. I just buy like 100 sheets on Amazon. And because I have a double oven, I use the upper oven for all of my baking, and I use my bottom oven for storing all of these baking sheets and extra paper. So I will use the paper once. Let's say I bake cookies. I will turn it over, use it again, and if it's still in good shape, I'll use it again until it's not in good shape, and then I'll throw it out. But it's so efficient. Everything comes off, it's nice and clean, and I don't have these yucky marks on my pans. So I really love thinking ahead so that when I'm baking, it's just more efficient. Now, I do have a place in my pantry where I have all of my other baking, baking pans, but like casserole pans and things like that. But I love to have these really close to my oven when I need them. All right, number 10. Let's talk about cleaning supplies under the sink. I love having just everything I need on hand there to do my basic cleaning. Another tip that I have found is really helpful, especially if, and I happen to be in this category where my kitchen and my pantry are totally separate. So again, I like to think ahead of time. Whenever I take out my garbage, I always have garbage bags or garbage liners already in my bin so that when I take out the dirty trash, there's a bunch of clean ones at the bottom waiting to just be put in. And I find that especially if you have children and you're teaching them to take out the trash, well, if they have to go and find a new trash bag, it's kind of a challenge, or they don't want to do it, or they forget, and then what happens, right? So think ahead of time, just have some folded under the trash so that every time you take them out, you've got a new bag there, and you don't have to run down the hall to your pantry to get our supply. So there's another little tip. Okay, number 11, Lazy Susans. I am not a huge fan of Lazy Susans. I know that a lot of cupboards come built in. If you can take them out, I think I would rather have them taken out because you can be really super efficient in your space, and I think I have a video of that as well. But if you do, and if you are stuck with Lazy Susans, there is something really great that you can do. Now, I happen to have a double Lazy Susan kind of in a bigger corner, so I will put all of my food storage containers. This is anything that I would put in my refrigerator once it has food in it. So I have an entire shelf just dedicated to different sizes of these glass containers. So it's super easy to grab, and I always have them stacked. And I always stack them in sorts. So all the rectangles are stacked, all the squares are stacked, all the, and it goes from big size to little size because, again, it just makes it more efficient when I'm trying to store my food. On the bottom rack, I have found that having baskets that are just about halfway up between that space, that's where I put all of my tall things like my olive oil, my avocado oil, my balsamic vinegar, those tall things that are just easy to get. They're kind of bulky, and I don't want them in a cupboard, or I don't have room for them in an upper cupboard. Another thing I do is I take 2 big baskets, kind of like the extras basket I showed you, and I fill it with things where this is my backup plan. Again, so let's give you an example. Let's say that I bought a bag of craisins, a big bag of craisins. Well, I'm not going to store that all in my kitchen. I have a little container about this big where I sort my craisins, my raisins, my nuts, my seeds. This size is perfect, and I love it. but I'm not going to use the whole bag. So what I do is I take the leftover and I put it nice and neatly in that extras basket. I do the same thing for brown sugar and powdered sugar because I like to buy them in bulk, but I don't want to always have a ton in my kitchen. It's just tucked in and out of the way. So I have an extras basket and it works really, really well. When I need to replenish, I just grab that and I go. I also have one in my pantry for things like cereal or other things that I store in my pantry. But for everything I store in my kitchen, the extras goes in the Lazy Susan. Another thing that you could do on your Lazy Susan is you can have a container or a basket just for lids. So if you don't have room to store all your food storage containers with their lids, you can have a basket that's just for lids. And again, sort them together, rounds, squares, whatever, so they're easy to get. All right? So that's a great way to use Lazy Susans, things that are bulky or things that need to be replenished. And you're not all, the nice thing is that they do move and you can turn them around, but you want to be able to access everything so that it's not falling off the sides of the Lazy Susan into your cupboard. They're nicely corralled in a container. Okay, now let's go back to these nuts and seeds for a minute because I don't want to forget this. I have about 8 to 10 of these in my kitchen cupboard. So I have different nuts, different seeds, different dried fruits, and they're all stored in these nice, I would say maybe 2.5 or 3 cup containers. So it's really, really easy to use. Now, if I have a backup of nuts and seeds, which I know have oil in them, I will store the bulk of the bag, the bigger bags I buy, in my freezer, which I happen to have in my pantry. So I have a refrigerator and freezer like many of you do in your kitchen, and then one in the pantry, or maybe you have yours in the garage. But they should be refrigerated or frozen because they will not go rancid as quickly, okay? So that's a great thing to do for these things. Again, raisins, craisins, dried fruit, those do not need to be refrigerated or frozen, but nuts and seeds for sure do. Okay, let's talk about cookbooks. Now, a lot of my clients have shelves full of cookbooks, and the biggest challenge there is that if you have shelves full of cookbooks, I bet that you're not using them at all because maybe they just look pretty, or maybe you've even forgotten what you like in that recipe book. So I'm going to give you permission to tear out the pages of the recipes that you love in each of those books and then put them in a binder. I've created this binder, and it's just my family favorites binder. This is full of all of the recipes that I make or I've collected that are really my family's favorite. And some of them even have torn out pages from recipe books, and then I've donated the actual recipe book. So it's a great way to just have all of your favorites in one place and then donate the rest. So that frees up a ton of space if you're getting rid of a lot of cookbooks. Just save the ones you absolutely have to have. Okay, number 13, we're talking about the cooking utensil drawer. I always like to kind of give a standard, no more than 3 of everything. 3 of your favorite spatulas, 3 of your favorite whisks, 3 of your favorite brown or wooden spoons. All of these items, we really don't need as many as I think we have. We kind of have our favorites, so sift through, get rid of the ones that don't look pretty or that don't function well, and just live with less. You can always buy more if you need it, but I think that you'll find that it's out of sight, out of mind, and that really helps with that cooking utensil drawer. Let's go to delicates in the kitchen. So this is number 14, and by delicates, I mean things like china or really beautiful little crystal dishes or anything that really doesn't get used every day, but that you'd like to have access to. Now, I have found that the best solution for that is to grab a big shoebox or a big caddy or something that's very safe and sturdy, and then just store them kind of nestled into each other in a box. So let's say that you have dessert dishes. I happen to have some china dishes that I really, really love and I want to keep safe. So I just kind of nestle them all into a box. And then when I need to use them, I take the whole box off the shelf. And then after I'm done, I clean them and put them back. But it's so much easier than having them stacked on the shelf. You don't know if that shelf is going to, get slammed, or the door is going to get slammed, or something might fall, and then you've lost that nice china. So be really mindful about how you store the delicate items in your kitchen. And if you have room to store your delicate items or your china somewhere else in the house where, because you don't access it as much, I would encourage you to do that as well. Number 15, kitchen gadgets. We're talking about things like coffee grinders, mandolins, food processors, juicers, shredders. have a place that is designated just for those appliances, because it's going to be so much easier, again, to find their home and to know what you have if those bulk items are put together, and then you have the little pieces or the parts or the attachments in the separate basket that I showed you earlier. All right, if you have small cupboards, let's say you live in an apartment or you just don't have a lot of kitchen space, I like to have the smaller Lazy Susans for all of your baking items, because you'll have taller things in the front like vanilla or extracts, and then you'll have smaller things in the front. So the taller things in the back, the smaller things in the front, baking soda, baking powder, salt, and those things. And so it is easy to switch around, and that might be a great way to use your small pantry space, your small cupboard space. So another thing I'd like to do, this is tip number 17, is to line your drawers and your cabinets. I like to use just kind of that shelving paper because it's adhesive and it creates just a really clean space. And it's really easy to go if you have drips and spills with a little bit of warm water and some Dawn and just clean it out and just start over, and it just feels so good instead of having sticky, stained shelves. Number 18, we're going to talk about baking essentials. So once again, I love to have these. These are my half-gallon containers. Again, I have these in store for any of you who'd like them. But I love these. Of course, they're clear so I can see when I need to replenish. But I use this size in my kitchen for things like cocoa powder, chocolate chips, brown sugar, powdered sugar. This is cacao nibs or cacao powder. And it's really easy because I have a whole baking section that just has these, so I can grab them easily. And chances are, if I'm using the chocolate chips, I'm also using brown sugar and vanilla and everything that's there in that cupboard together. So I really like this size for that. It's so important, I think, to make your food visible. So many times when I go to organize kitchens and pantries, I find these plastic bags, like with elastic around them, kind of shoved in the bag, and then they forget that they even have the food, so they continue to buy it over and over again, right? Well, not only is that not smart space-wise, but you're wasting food. And for brown sugar especially, the worst thing is to open one of those bags and it's so hard that you can't even use it. So what I do is I just put it in one of these containers. I slip a little piece of bread or a little piece of apple, keeps it so nice and soft. And then I have good brown sugar all the time. So get rid of those bags with the elastics. Get rid of that. And just take any food that is containerized, that comes in the store in a bag or in a box, and think, how could I put that or organize that visually so I know how much is in that bag or box and I know when to replenish it. So there's my little tip for number 18. Number 19. 19 is storing your supplements and your medications. A lot of people store that in their kitchens. So here's a way that I have found it's absolutely easy for everyone. And that is, again, taking any container you have. It could be this, could be an empty shoebox, label it, and these are the categories that you might want to consider. Things like pain meds for one, tummy trouble for another, colds and congestion for another, vitamins, if you have vitamins or supplements, one for first aid, so Band-Aids, Neosporin, burn cream, things like that, one for sleep aids if you need it, and one for prescription meds. So can you see how much more efficient it is? I mean, typically when people put their medications in their cupboard, it's in a super long, narrow cupboard, and you're always trying to look over it and find what's back there. And a lot of times they're expired because we forget that we bought the Flonase and we have to buy it again, right? So just organize your medications and your vitamins and your supplements by section and have them in their own container. That way, if you tell your child, you know what, okay, you need some cold medicine or you need some essential oils, they'll know exactly where to go because it's labeled and it's in the medicine cabinet. So I think this is a really great system to use. Number 20. I always love to have a drawer specifically for clean linens. And again, I take the entire drawer, I section it off, and I put open baskets or caddies so that each one can have their thing. I have one for dish rags, I have one for dish towels, I have one for aprons, and then I have one for tea towels. So for me, that works really well, and there's no room in between to lose things. And of course, I'm again a fan of Marie Kondo and the way that she folds things so that you can really maximize that space in your drawers. All right, so that was 20 things just to organize your kitchen spaces. Now we're going to talk about the refrigerator. Now, I can't say enough how the refrigerators, of course, and you know this, can be such a forgetful thing. Like we forget that things are in our fridge, especially on the condiment side or green onions or things like that. And everything gets kind of pushed, or if we have too much, we just kind of don't eat it and it goes to waste. So I would encourage you, if you have time in your week or in your month, to really do a deep clean of your refrigerator once a month. Because then you can really get everything nice and tidy and you can get back into your system again. So I'm going to share some ideas that I have used with clients and in my own home every day for organizing the refrigerator, because I think this can really help meal prep and mealtime go a lot smoother. First of all, I mentioned in an earlier episode how right before I go grocery shopping, I like to just kind of wipe down what's inside the fridge. I like to see what my inventory is and make sure that I have room for the incoming food. Again, I am a real fan of these glass containers because they just fit so well in the fridge. You can see all your food. They come in all kinds of different sizes, so it's perfect for teeny tiny sizes if you have just leftovers, or big sizes for rice and chicken and things like that. So I love glass. Do you ever get frustrated when you have like big jars, let's say big jars of pickles or big jars of sun-dried tomatoes or jam, and you have this huge bulky jar in your fridge, but there's only just a tiny little bit left, maybe 2 or 3 servings? Well, I hate that too, and I feel like it's such a waste of space. So what I do is when it gets to about a cup full, I just transfer anything that's about that much into a smaller jar. And these are just curd jars, mason jars. And I like these little plastic lids. You can just buy these on Amazon, and I love it because then you just have your littles and it's top of mind. You know what, let's just go ahead and use that in a recipe. So I like to kind of take my larger items and put them in small if I only have a little bit left, and then recycle the big jar. Okay? All right. Fridges are being designed these days so smart. So there are so many great places for things that are, right now and every day. Instead of having these big, huge, shelves that you can't adjust, they have these really nice. What I love right now is these great little long, skinny, I would say a deli drawer that you can pull out. And so I really love to organize deli drawers for everyday things, especially for kids, because it's really on their eye level. So I'm going to kind of jump into that for a minute and tell you what I use there. I talked last week about using shoebox lids, and I love shoebox lids if they're great, if they're really good, sturdy shoebox lids, because these are actually perfect for that deli drawer. In that deli drawer, I have 2 or 3 of these lids, and do you know what? It's perfect for make-ahead sandwiches. So what I do is I just make 5 or 6 sandwiches ahead of time. I don't put any condiments on it, so it won't be soggy, but I put everything else in. I put them in separate sandwich bags, and then I stick them in that little one of those shoebox lids. It's perfect. It's just exactly the right fit for sandwich. So I have one of those, and then in the next one, I have little snack bags filled with carrot sticks and celery sticks. So I have 6 or 7 of those too. So it's just a quick grab if you're hungry. Along with the celery sticks, I also love to have these little tiny, you can buy these at the dollar store. They're so great, these little plastic containers, and I just recycle them and reuse them and just wash them. I put peanut butter in for the celery, or I could do a homemade hummus. But I tuck in a few of these in that little lid as well, so that they're right by the celery and the carrot sticks, and they're good to go. And I'm telling you, lunch is made. It's so simple if you have little kids, or if you have grandkids who come over. Just let them, finish their own sandwich with the condiments they like and stick in the lettuce, and on you go. And then they can take these. I also like to have little pouches of things like applesauce, if you like kids who have applesauce, or cold drinks or things like that. So easy grabs. In that deli section, there's so much room. So I like to always store all of my different cheeses. So I have 4 or 5 different cheeses that I like, and I store them all in here. So again, I've taken the bulk bag, if I buy it in bulk, shredded cheese or goat cheese, and I break it down to fit into my little drawer there. And so because they're not very high, and it just fits the drawer perfectly, I know that all of my cheeses and all of my lunch supplies for my family are there, and it makes it super, super simple. If you want to do a whole, container like this full of, let's say, cut up radishes or broccoli or anything that you could dip in hummus, this is the place to put it, because when they see what's in front of them, they're going to want to eat it, and when it looks pretty, even more so. Okay, now let's see. Okay, let's talk about the freezer really quickly. There is a whole episode actually on kind of how to not be a food waster, and that was, I think, in May or June. So we talk a lot about food storage in the refrigerator, and I would ask you to review that if that interests you. Look at the space that you have in your freezer. And again, you may have a freezer in your kitchen, and then you might have a backup freezer either in your garage or in your pantry. And so I like to separate mine into areas as well. So I have two long drawers, kind of like the deli drawer in there, and then I have two deep drawers. So I like to put all the big, heavier bags if I'm doing chicken or anything that's heavy, the vegetables, the fruits, and they're all divided by section in the bottom drawers. And then I'd like to have another area that's just for frozen breads, things like bagels or English muffins or naan bread or things like that. So it's all kind of by category. It's so easy to find things. And then I have one section that's just for my pastry things, like I do make-ahead dough rolls or pie crust rolls. I also do frozen cookie balls. And so things like that that are just kind of a grab and go. It's really easy. Phyllo dough, it's all in that one section for baking. And it makes it so nice because I also like to kind of take a quick inventory, because sometimes when I need to bring dessert to somebody really quick, or it's nice to have those things on hand, and I know that all I have to do is take them out, thaw them, and bake them, and they're good to go. All right, let's take a little breath here. There's a lot to cover. So then the last area in my freezer I like to have for like either leftovers. Let's say I made soup and I wanted to have leftover soup or rice or noodles or something like that. It's all there just for, quick thaw or quick cook foods. And so because I don't buy packaged foods or anything that's pre-made, if I have something that's left over, or if I make something on purpose, like a lot of refried beans or a lot of rice, I can store those so that they're really quick to use, or if I'm not home and my family wants to have something, then that's a quick meal. All right, I've always been a fan, I have to say, of my little ice cube trays. I keep bringing this up, but this can store so many great things. So we talked about things like, citrus juices, so lemon juice with the rind, or lime juice with the rind, or tomato paste, or herb butter. Those are all things that we covered in previous episodes. But these are great. So I have a little space in my freezer where all of those things go. So if I need a quick cube of something, I know that they're all there. And then I can also understand that if they're getting low, I need to restock. So really, I feel like the theme of organization is always have a backup, because I don't like to run out of things. And always be aware of where you are inventory-wise. Do you need to replenish? Is there enough for the coming week or the coming month? So I think this will really help you in your food and in other areas of your home. Okay, the second fridge that I have, or my overflow fridge, I put things like I mentioned before, bulk herbs and seasonings that I can replenish the little jars from, bulk nuts and seeds. I kind of like to have a space if I'm having company over, if I need, large trays or something. That's kind of nice to have that as an overflow. Big things like watermelon that I don't want to store in my kitchen fridge. It's nice to have those bulky things in that fridge, or extra gallons of milk, or anything else that's kind of a backup. Let's say, I like to buy cheese in bulk on the block, and so I don't want the whole big block in my normal fridge in the kitchen, so I take what I need, I put it in that little deli drawer I talked about, and then the rest of the block of that, or the rest of the block of the cream cheese, goes in the overflow fridge. So I like to have that kind of as my backup space, and then have my using food, stuff that's going to be used every day, in my everyday kitchen. All right, now whether you're working out of a pantry of just shelves in your hallway, or you have a great walk-in pantry, I'm going to share some principles with you about pantry organization that I think you're going to find really interesting and really valuable. So I'm going to remind you again that I have several videos on pantry organization, and I'm going to be posting those in the next few days, so watch for them, because they'll give you different ideas for different spaces. And I think it's, you'll have some takeaways that you can use from each one of those probably. All right, I'd like to see the pantry. Now that we're going to the pantry, hopefully I've covered a lot in the kitchen that's going to help you. But the pantry to me is kind of a backup grocery store. It's where I put all of the things that are kind of overflow or that are bulk. And I like to have that as kind of my replenishing station. So it feels like, in the fall when you kind of squirrel everything away and you go do bulk food sales and things like that, it's a great time to restock the pantry. Remember I asked at the very beginning, is there a way that you have in your home where you replenish? It could be from a long-term food storage supply that you have in your basement. It could be, anywhere in the house. Or do you just have it in your pantry? So it's important to understand where is all your food? How is it getting rotated evenly so that it doesn't, expire and go to waste? And is it efficient? That's the bottom line. Are you managing it simply? So let me give you just a few ideas there. I'm really, really specific about the containers in my pantry because I know what works. After years of doing pantry organization, I know that square will always work better than round. I know this. And so I always encourage my clients to do square. And it just fits better. It looks really nice. And I like to organize the pantry. And I'm just going to tell you the way I do mine because I know that yours is going to be different. So don't feel like all of these things I'm going to suggest to you are going to work. But hopefully you'll have things that you can take away. Just like the kitchen, I think it's important to organize your pantry by the way that it's used. So you may have a pantry where you can have large appliances. So have all of your large appliances together in a space. You might have enough room in your pantry to have all of your baking needs, like your casserole dishes or your pans or your pots or things like that. Have those all in one place. I also like to have a place in my pantry for all of my serving dishes, all of my platters, all of my bowls, all of my things that I'm going to be serving out of because it's out of the way. I'm not using it every single day in the kitchen, but it's really accessible. I put bowls on one side, platters on another, so it's really kind of dumbed down. All my cake platters, I love cake pedestals. That happens to be something I love, so I've kind of a collection of those. And then I do that completely separate. You'll have your griddles, your waffle irons, all of those electric things. Have those on one side of the pantry, and on the other side, just dedicate that to food. And when you're organizing your food, that's going to be canned foods, dried foods, bottled foods. That could be so many things. And so understand which of those things that you're going to be using more often, and they should be at eye level. The things that you're not using as often, they should either be high, where you can access them with a little step stool, or low. Now, on the ground, it's not the best idea to have anything where little critters can get in. So it's the perfect place actually for large buckets of bulk food. So for those of you who do food storage and you're really familiar with that, you might have 5-gallon buckets or 6-gallon buckets where you have large, containers of flour. These are just white buckets. And then I like to take these gamma lids. They come in every color. I happen to have, red for flour, yellow for wheat, and then I have one for sugar and brown wheat or brown rice. And I have like 6 or 7 of these at the very bottom, underneath all the shelves in my pantry. And this is so great because it really does keep you can see it has these little grooves right here, so it just screws onto your lid. It keeps your food super, super fresh and airtight, but it's so easy to get into, so you don't have to have one of those bung wrenches or bucket openers every time. So I like to have these in my pantry so that I can take from the bulk that I have stored and replenish the smaller containers. And by smaller, I mean these gallon-sized containers. So this happens to be hash browns. I have so many of these. I have them for rices and cereals and grains and pastas and everything that you can imagine. But again, I'm taking from the bulk and I'm replenishing for the small. And again, this is super easy to use in my kitchen. I can see when I need to replenish it. And it's just, everything looks pretty, and I think then you want to use it when it looks pretty. All right, I want to give you one quick suggestion, and this worked so well for me. I've had these for a long time, and before I ever had these other containers that are the gallon ones, I used these, and I think these are still available. You can get these, let's say, maybe at Target or any other store like that. But it's basically, if I can show you here, it's kind of a pull-out shoe container. These are meant to be like a shoe container, okay? We happen to love pasta at my house, so I have 6 or 7 of these. Well, actually I have 9, and they stack really well on top of another. So I have one for bow ties, and one for rotelli, and one for linguine, and one for, whole wheat pasta, whatever. But these are great because you can just pull it out, you can replenish it, you can use it, you can put it back. And easy come, easy go. So there's another solution you might want to look at. Again, look at the space that you have and then go shopping for containers and say, well, what would make sense? And how many different varieties of things that do you have? Do you have different grains? Do you have different pastas? And what makes sense for your space? Okay, let's see. We talked about sorting canned goods. So even when you're storing canned goods, store your canned goods by sections. So one is vegetables, one is fruits, one is, condiments, things like that. One is meats. It can be whatever you want, but make sure to sort them so it's just easy to find what you're looking for. I love to do this for families who have young children or even grandparents who have grandkids come over. Sometimes it's nice just to have an area in the pantry for them. We talked about having one in the fridge, kind of in the deli section with, pre-made sandwiches or little, fruit or vegetables cut up with dips, and that's a nice idea. But in the pantry, it's really great to have it at eye level. So they have a choice of what they can have, and maybe you say, you know what, you can have 2 treats today. So they have granola bars, or they have, applesauce, packets, or, juice boxes, or whatever you like them to have. It's nice to just have them thrown in there and they can have them as well. Now, I mentioned these containers last week. These are the click and flip containers that I love because they're kind of hinged on the back. Do you see? And then you can flip them up like this. This I love for snacks because you can do one for granola bars and one for, energy bars, or one for whatever, and they're different, and then they can choose. So again, I'm crazy about clear because I can see what's inside. And now that we're at this, I'm just going to share this with you. So again, I'm kind of crazy about having things out of their boxes if I can. So this is the way I store my plasticware: spoons, forks, knives, things like this, because I don't like those dingy little boxes. And I feel like when they're in those little boxes, they get shoved to the back of the cupboard. So instead, I open the boxes, I put them in one of these, I get rid of the box, and it's out of sight, out of mind. And it's so easy. So when I go on a picnic, I know exactly where the plastic forks are or the plastic knives. I can grab them and I can go. And it makes it so easy for the family to find things too. I really know that when you have an organized system, people are more likely to keep things clean. And so it's just a way to do it. Whatever floats your boat, whatever works for you, just have fun doing it. That's part of organization too. All right, I know there are a lot of storage solutions like rolling shelves, there's baskets. My own opinion about rolling shelves is they're not the best solution. They're quite bulky. They take a lot of space. I mean, if you have the space and you love them, then great, but that wouldn't be my go-to thing. And again, I would encourage you to watch the videos I'm gonna post soon on other organization projects so you can see what other people are doing and what works for them. I do like in my pantry to have a place that's just for food gifting or sending food home with people. So when people have come to eat at my home and I want to send them home with food, I like to have an area that's just designated for that. So maybe paper plates or some nice takeout dishes, things like this. And so it's great because I don't have to wrap something and then on a plate and then hope that they bring it back. It's just a nice to-go kind of container. And for those of you who bake out there, I go to the grocery store and I actually buy some of those empty donut boxes, the collapsible kind, and you can put your cinnamon rolls or your cookies or whatever. And they're always really good. They're super friendly. Sometimes they even give me the donut boxes, the empty ones. And I love to have those in my pantry because when I bake and I do a dozen rolls or a bunch of cookies, or I need to deliver something, it's so much easier to have it in a disposable box than on a platter, again, that I have to wonder if I'm going to get back or when am I going to get it back. So that's part of my kind of to-go pile in my pantry. I love that. All right. Have a place. We talked last week about, I think it was last week, about recycling, having recyclable grocery bags and vegetable bags. And again, I'm such a fan of not wasting and not using plastic. And so I have these mesh disposable, or these mesh kind of cotton bags that have a drawstring, and I use them for all of my produce at the grocery store, and then I just launder them and use them again. But when you're coming in from the grocery store and you have your recycled bags and your vegetable bags, instead of having to go back out to the car and put them back, just have a 3M hook behind your door in the pantry or in your pantry and just leave them there until you're ready to go grocery shopping again. And again, it's just out of sight, but you know exactly where to find those when you need them. So I really like that. And less waste goes to the dump. All right, we talked about the spices, how to organize those, and how to store them in the fridge or freezer if you can. All right, I think the final thing I really want to leave you with is to never be afraid to get rid of stuff, especially kitchen and pantry stuff. Another tip I have is there are so many great solutions at the dollar store. I mean, I go to the dollar store maybe twice a year just to get like little solutions for, you know, to-go boxes because they really have some good ones. And so I kind of stock up on those things, but they've got some pretty amazing little solutions that are super inexpensive and that I wouldn't have thought about. So that's one thing. And I think that just if you can go through all of your spaces in your pantry and your kitchen, and you can just say what's working for me and what's not, and just come up with something that works for your family. If you have ideas or if you have issues where you say, you know what, I am at a loss, I've tried all these things, what would you do? Drop me a quick line and I'd love to give it a shot and see if I can help you with your organizing challenges. Next week, we're going to attack the car and the garage, and we're going to see if we can organize those parts spaces, because I know that those are high, you know, we're in those places a lot, going in and out from our homes, and so it's important to keep those functioning as well. And so whether you are a driver with a lot of kids or you're a solo driver, whether you use a garage as a workshop or not, I'm going to give you some tips and ideas there as well. So again, if you haven't watched any of the other organization episodes that we did, they launched on July 4th. This is now the 4th one. We have one more to go. So first week in August will be our last one. And so I appreciate all of your feedback. It's so fun to get your emails and see what you're doing in your homes to stay organized. And I hope this has been inspiring for you. I love to hear your feedback. Again, this is an online community. We love to share and learn from one another, and I would encourage you to share anything that you feel would benefit all of us here. Thanks again, friends. I will see you again next week, and I hope you have a super great weekend and get a jump on your organizing. Bye-bye.